Grace Fellowship is a local church that seeks to glorify God as part of His church universal. His glory is the ultimate motive behind everything we believe, teach, practice, and represent. We seek to glorify Him by loving Him and growing in knowledge and relationship with Him more and more through His Word. We also seek to further glorify Him by loving others and urging them into a saving, growing relationship with Him and His church, ministering in His name. But how did we get here?
Let's go back in time to 2003. July 2003 to be exact. In that month, I found myself at a crossroads, but with a passion for God's Word and God's people. In August, Amy and I opened up our home and began leading a Bible study on Sunday evenings. The group that first night was comprised of 14 families. In the weeks that followed, the men in the group began to meet weekly to discuss next steps for the group.
Questions like, how do we move forward? Are we being moved along to begin a new church? What are we committed to? What is non-negotiable? Where do we literally go from here? These questions were batted around and prayed over, discussed and argued about until finally, after much prayer, many late nights, and hours of discussion, Grace Fellowship met for the first time as a church on Sunday, October 12, 2003, at the Anniston Meeting Center. I preached, Dave Wright led us in worship, Thelma Pinkston organized a children's room, and we were off. We were energized and excited as we met together and began organizing ways to serve one another in our community. For the next several months, we saw interest pick up in who we were and what we were about. Providentially, in February of 2004, a property was made available on the Jacksonville Highway. The former Fellowship Baptist Church, that we lovingly still refer to as the White Church, became our home. We poured blood, sweat, and tears into reclaiming the basement for the children's area, and soon it was full. Before long, that small church on the hill was crowded with a mix of college kids, young families, and mature saints as we experienced the Lord's blessing and the gospel work bore fruit. We completed our first membership class in April of 2004. We soon began looking for a larger, permanent home, and in May of 2007, we found what we needed in the Centurion Chapel at Fort McClellan. This non-denominational chapel was built in 1955 and served as a Christian chapel servicing both Protestants and Catholics. The baptistry was located in the area of my current office, and a confessional area was in the area that's presently Corey's office. It had been vacant since 1986 and was in a state of disrepair. This purchase included 8.5 acres and 2 buildings, the sanctuary building and a self-help building, which now is the home to our community center. After months of renovation, Grace Fellowship had our first corporate worship service on Sunday, October 12, 2008. As we continued to grow and need more space, we renovated the community center in 2014. Our most current addition is the children's wing, which was designed and overseen with thoughtful, loving care by Miss Pinkston. It was completed in April of 2020. So what does Grace Fellowship look like 20 years later?
Family.
Excellent.
Different.
Communal.
Family.
Loving.
Family.
Well, this is so easy to love Grace Fellowship. This is where I'm supposed to be.
It was the people and the word that is what we fell in love with. And it's really a beautiful tapestry that has been woven for us.
At Grace Fellowship, we desire for all people to hear and believe the good news about Jesus. We believe worship is our humble, constant, appropriate, glad response to God's self-revelation and His enabling invitation. We believe that the way forward is through serving. We desire to serve others in our homes, the church, our community, and the world. We believe that the doctrines of grace create a culture of grace, a community of acceptance, hope, freedom, and joy. We believe that a high view of God's sovereignty fuels death-defying devotion to God's global mission. These are core values that translate into weekly Bible-centered corporate worship, weekly men's and women's Bible studies, one-on-one discipleship, and accountability groups. They're found in the training of our children and young people in solid truth that gives them hope and life, They're heard in the glad testimonies of the redeemed in baptism and the soul-satisfying grace we find in communion. One way we build community at Grace Fellowship is through our home group ministry. These home groups reach out in love during the happy days, and they walk with others during hard seasons of life. We also support Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Campus Outreach, Families Count, Hope Services, the CP Center, just to name a few. They're manifested through our support of missionaries through To Every Tribe and other global agencies, from Peru to the First Nations in Canada, from Senegal to Papua New Guinea, from the Czech Republic to Mexico.
We give God all the glory for the work that He's done here at Grace Fellowship over the last 20 years. It's been such a joy to watch God work in this church and through this church throughout the small corner of the world that we live in. We anticipate, based on the foundation that He's laid, that the next generation will only grow in intensity and greatness towards His glory.